Hello. So we're going to do our math lesson today, and we're going to talk about measuring angles. So I'm going to be using a tool called a protractor. Remember, these are in the office. You can swing by the office and pick one up. This looks a little bit different than the protractors that I got for you to use, but it's the exact same principle. So we're going to be using a protractor, and I'm also going to be showing you a little bit using a protractor that has angle attachments to it. Okay, so you can always come to the office, or you can come to my front porch and pick up a protractor. There's a basket on my porch that has protractors in it. And also there's a basket in the office. So I'm folding my paper into 16 squares today because I think we're gonna do a few more problems than normal. So I'm gonna go ahead and screen share. And sorry, I was just doing help desk, and so my desk is all crazy from help desk. So, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and write my name in the corner. And today we're doing lesson number 9.1. And we're gonna be going from pages 88 to 93. All right, so we're gonna start out doing number 12, and we're gonna do 13, and we're gonna do 14. And then on the next page, we're gonna do 15, 16, 17. And then we have 4 angles on page 91. So we're gonna do A, we'll call it A, B, C, and D. And then after we're done doing that, we're gonna go to the Let's Practice page, and we're gonna do 1 through 7. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so I know that's kind of a lot of problems, but they'll go pretty quickly because we're going to be measuring angles and it won't take too long. Okay, so we're starting out on page 88, and we're going to look at our page in the book because we have a lot of vocabulary words on this page. So we're going to use a protractor to measure the angle in degrees. So the measurement of an angle, the unit of measurement is called a degree. An angle measure is a fraction of a full turn. An angle is measured in degrees. For example, a right angle has a measure of 90 degrees. You can write this as 90 with a little circle that's up near the top of the 0. And that means 90 degrees. Now, if you're a skateboarder or a snowboarder, you know about 180s and 360s. And those are geometry terms, right? And so we will kind of talk about those a little bit as we move on. So if you're looking at an angle, you're going to measure, this is called the vertex, and you're going to put your protractor on this dot right here that's called the vertex. And so this is what it looks like when you put your protractor on it. If I put my protractor on it, I'm going to put my protractor right here on this dot. And I want the bottom line to line up. If I'm using my orange one, you might be able to see it a little bit better. So with my orange one, see how I'm right here where these 2 lines intersect? And right where these lines intersect, and this has to be flat along the bottom, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be able to measure that angle now now that my vertex is where it needs to be, right in the little crosshairs in the middle. Your protractors, I believe, have a hole in the plastic, and that goes right on top of the vertex where the hole is. For the life of me, I think I gave all of mine away to you guys, and I don't have one that looks like yours. But I believe yours has a hole in the plastic, or it has a little X where you're going to set it down on top of the vertex. Now, after you've set it on the vertex and it looks like this page in our book right here, this is the center, and this is called the baseline, the baseline of the protractor. You're going to place the baseline of the protractor on line or on ray AB, right? And then you're going to place the center of the baseline of the protractor at the vertex of the angle. And then you're going to read the outer scale. Ray AC passes through the 45-degree mark. So can you see that? This is the outer scale. There's two sets of numbers. There's an inner scale and an outer scale. And we want to use the outer scale. So we're going to read the outer scale, and it passes through 45. See how it's between 40 and 50 in your math book? Hi. That's okay. You can just set them right there. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That happens. I'm finding, no, that's totally okay. I'm finding the kids have lots of piles, and it's all good.
It's not good.
Well, she's doing her work, and that's a good thing.
I'm trying. Like now, I'm pushing her and reviewing every day. I'm like, okay, tell me what you've done.
You're doing a really good job.
We're trying.
Have a good weekend. I'll see you.
All right, take care.
That was just Victoria's dad. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have the baseline and I have the center right on the vertex of the angle. The outer scale says between 40 and 50, and that's 45. So I know that this angle measures 45 degrees. Since AB passes through the 0 mark of the outer scale, read the measure on the outer scale. Okay, so see how this bottom line is on the 0, right? And so that means we're using the outer scale. You want to look for the 0. So for example, if you had an angle going the other way, you would probably want to use the inner scale, because here's the 0 right here on the inner scale. Okay? All right. So we're going to look at an angle facing the opposite direction. This is angle DEF. And we're going to measure, it's less than a right angle, right? We know that it's not a right angle because we can take a piece of paper, we can take the corner of a piece of paper and put it over the angle, and it covers the angle. So we know that it's less than a right angle. All right. So if we use our protractor, again, we've set the baseline and the center point of the protractor down on top of the angle. Our 0 is over here. So we're going to use our 0 scale. We're going to go up here, and it looks like it's measuring 70 degrees. Okay. So you always look for the 0. You're not going to use the outer scale because the outer scale starts at 180. You want to look for the 0 on the protractor. Okay. So this angle measures 70 degrees. All right. Now we're going to measure a few of them on our own. And I'm going to use my orange one, I think, so that you can really see. So if I'm measuring this angle on number 12, this is called angle ABC. The B, the letter that's in the middle, is always going to be the vertex. So I'm putting my protractor right here on top of, you can see that I'm at the center and I'm touching the bottom line. And when I measure, it's exactly 90 degrees, right? I can see that it's 90. So I'm going to say On number 12, I'm going to say angle A, B, C equals 90 degrees. And if it's 90 degrees, I'm going to give a fraction to talk about the turn of it, right? If I had 4 90-degree angles, I would have 360. If I have 2 angles, let's say I only have 2, that's going to be 180 degrees. So this is 4 out of 4, right? This is 2 out of 4, or 1/2. So if I have 90 degrees, that means I only have this. So 90 degrees is going to be 1/4 turn. If I have 360, I have 4 out of 4, right? If I have 2 of these, I have 2 out of 4. That's going to be a half turn. If I only have 1 of them, it's going to be a 1/4 turn. It's half of a half, which is 1/4. Okay? Now, look at the next one. The next one's kind of tricky. So instead of wanting us to measure the inside of the angle, see where that circle is? They want us to measure the outside of the angle, right? So if I measured the outside of this angle, I would put my, actually, I can't do that with my protractor, but I would say that this is how much of a turn? Here's 90, 90, 90. I would say it's 3/4 of a turn, right? So we're going to say angle P, Q, R equals 3/4 of a turn. Does that make sense to everybody? So if I have half, it's going to be 180, but this is actually going around 1, 2, 3 times. So 180 plus 90 is going to be the degrees I have. So if I have 180 plus 90, I have, I'm going to do that over here on the back, 180 plus 90. So in other words, if you were to draw a picture of what they're measuring, and we're measuring this, this right here would be 90. This right here would be another 90, right? If we measured this, this right here would be another 90. So we're doing 90 plus 90 plus 90. 90 plus 90 is 180. A straight line is 180. So we would have 270 degrees. Okay, so I'm just going to write that it measures 270 degrees. Okay, let's look at number 14. Number 14 says measure angle GHK. Again, the H is the vertex because the vertex is always the letter that's in the middle. So if we are measuring GHK, we're looking right here. They put the protractor down for us. We're starting at 0, so we're on the inner scale, and we're going all the way up here on the yellow, and we're right between 140 and 130. So it's probably going to be 135, right? Halfway between the middle if you look in your book. Is the measure of GHK less than or greater than 90 degrees? It's greater, right? So we're going to write on here greater. So we're going to say it's greater than 90 degrees. The measure of GHK is, and again, we said it's 135 degrees. Okay. All right. Now we're going to look at number 15. So this time, this is kind of cool that they have all the protractors in your book. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit so you can see the numbers a little bit better. So if we're looking at this angle, this is angle JKL. Remember, the middle letter is always the vertex. And they want us to measure this gray part. So again, we're going to use the outer scale because we're always going to come across and look for the 0, right? So we go up here, 0. This is greater than 90. So we're passing 90, and then we come up here, and it looks like it's on 110, right? So they're saying, is the measure of JKL less than or greater than 90 degrees? And we're going to say angle JKL is greater than 90 degrees. And angle JKL measures 110 degrees. Okay, pretty good. Now let's look at 16. So now they think you're an expert. So we're going to come over here. We have the protractor. And again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit if I can so you can see the numbers on the protractor because it's a little bit hard to see. Still looks a little bit blurry. All right, so let's see. See if I can kind of clean that off a little bit. Nope, still a little fuzzy. One more autofocus. Okay, so now we're looking at the measure of angle E, right? Again, we always start where the 0 is. We're looking for the 0. It's on the outer scale. So this is less than 90. So I know it's not going to be the inner scale because the inner scale is measuring 140. And that's not a 140 degree angle. It's less than 90. So we're going to measure it at 40. So we're going to say angle E equals 40 degrees. And this is how you write degrees. It's like a little tiny circle that's up above, just like you do it with temperature when you measure degrees. All right, now on number 17, we're going to be looking at the measure of angle F. So again, this is wider than 90, right? If I put a piece of paper on here, on the corner, if I take my paper and I go like this, it's not covering the angle. The paper angle is 90 degrees, and this is greater than 90. You can still see the angle. Again, I'm going to start at 0. You always want to start at 0. So I'm using the inner scale, not the outer scale. The outer scale is starting at 180. I want to start at 0. I'm going to come across here, and I'm going to go all the way 120. It's between 120 and 130, right? And so the number between 120 and 130 is going to be 125. Now I know it's not the outer scale because the outer scale says 55. And this is greater than 90 degrees. So it can't be 55. So I know it's going to be 125 degrees. So I'm going to say angle F equals 125 degrees. Okay, so this angle right here, 16, if it's less than 90, we could say angle E is an acute angle. we could say angle F is an obtuse angle. All right. Now we're going to measure the angles that are on the next page. And the first angle I'm seeing, we're going to call it ABC. Angle ABC. And remember, the middle letter is always the vertex. So I could either call it ABC or CBA, but the B has to be in the middle. All right, so I'm looking at this angle right here, and I'm going to use my orange protractor. I'm making sure that right here where these lines meet, or if you have one of the protractors that has a hole in the plastic, that's where the hole goes, right here where the vertex is. I line it up with the bottom, and I'm lining it up perfectly on the center, and I'm seeing that it's 90 degrees, right? This is where I'm pointing right here. The angle is right along the 90-degree mark. So I'm going to write angle ABC equals 90 degrees. And if an angle measures 90 degrees, it is a right angle. All right. Should we try the second one? The second one is letter B, and we're calling that EFG, angle EFG. Remember, F is the vertex, so F has to be the middle letter. So if I'm looking at angle EFG, I'm going to go ahead, and I know that it's less than 90 because 90 degrees would be, the angle would be up here. So I'm going to set my protractor right. I want to make sure the center point, sorry about that. I want to make sure that the center point and the line at the bottom line up with the angle. I start at 0 because I'm going to be measuring from 0. I go from 0 to, and it looks like it's 80 degrees. So I'm going to write on here 80 degrees. Now, if an angle is less than 90, it is called an acute angle. All right. Okay, now I'm going to look at the next one. The next angle is, we're going to call it XYZ. And we'll figure out the measurement on XYZ. Here we go. So again, I'm going to take my protractor, and I want this Y. We're measuring this part. It's showing me this little curved line right here shows me what we want to measure. So I'm going to flip my protractor so that it's upside down, and I'm going to put the vertex right where the lines cross. And I'm starting at 0, and I want to measure over here, and it looks like it's right at 100. And that makes sense because if I put my paper on the page, it's greater than 90, right? So it's 100 degrees. Now, if my angle is 100 degrees, it is going to be an obtuse angle. Because 100 degrees is greater than 90. All right. And now I'm going to do the last one, and this is angle KLM. Remember, I have to have the vertex in the middle. The vertex is point L. So I'm going to take my protractor. I'm going to make sure that the X goes right here on the vertex on L. And then I'm going to make sure that K is along the line. I start at 0. I'm on the inner scale because I'm starting at 0, and I'm going to zip over and it looks like it's 130 degrees. If you look on the outer scale, it says 50 degrees. I know this isn't a 50-degree angle because it's way past 90, right? So it is actually 130 degrees. And that means it's an obtuse angle. Okay. So it tells us to make a little table below, but I don't think we really have to because we wrote the answers on each one. And so that's good enough for me. Okay. When you turn your paper in, that will be fine. Okay. So we're going to do some let's practice work. Okay. And they have have some questions for us, and they're giving us the protractor, and then they have all the angles underneath the protractor, which is helpful. So question 1 says name 2 angles that are right angles. Well, remember we want 90 degrees. So I'm looking right here at 90, and I'm looking at this angle AOE, and then I could also do this angle BOE. So we're going to write angle AOE and angle BOE are right angles. Again, we always want to make sure that the O is in the middle because the O is the vertex of each of these angles. The O is the middle. Okay? It's the vertex. Now we're going to name 4 angles that are acute angles, and we're going to measure them. Okay? So let's look at 4 angles. We're going to write them down as we go. I'll just keep my paper over here, and as we find one, we'll write them down. So we want angles that are less than 90. If 90 is right here, we're going to look for, I think we can find 1, 2, 3 over here, 1, 2, and 3, and then we can probably use one from over here. So our first angle would be AOC, right? We have to remember that the O always has to be in the middle of all of these. So we're going to call it angle AOC. And then we're going to do angle DOC. And then we're going to do, we could do EOD. And let's pick one from this other side, right? If we take this little thin guy right here on the bottom, so we have BOG, bog, angle bog. And notice how all of them have the O in the middle. And notice how all of them have this little symbol. This symbol means angle. So if this is one of the cool things about math is that it's an international language. So if I went to India and I started measuring angles in India, a person in India, we might not be able to speak the same language, but if we speak the same math language, everybody uses this symbol to show angle. And then if I drew an angle, this would be the vertex, and everybody would understand what I was doing because math's a universal language. So everyone uses this symbol, and everyone always puts the vertex in the middle, which is really cool. So we're going to say that they are acute angles, are acute. And it asked us to measure them. So I'm going to put the measurement right above each one. I'll put it in the parentheses. So let's look at AOC. Remember, I'm at the outer scale because I'm starting at 0. This one is 20 degrees. Now I need DOC. So this one is from 20 to 35. So 35 minus 20 is going to be 15. So it's 15 degrees. Now I'm measuring this last one, and it is from 90, let's see, 35 to 90. So we could count it, skip count it. That's 10 degrees, 20 degrees, 30 degrees, 40 degrees, 50 degrees, plus 5. So it's 55 degrees. And then we measured this last one. And again, we can look at 0 on the inner scale, and it's 20 degrees. Okay? So we measured all of them, and we made sure they're all less than 90, so they're all acute angles. Name 4 that are obtuse, and we're going to measure them. Okay, here we go. So this time, if we did A and O, but then we came over here, let's do AOB. AOB is 180 because it's a straight line, and straight lines are always 180. So we're going to say angle AOB is 180 degrees. How many do we need? 4. Uh-oh. Let's do AOG. So if we have AOG and we start over here at the scale where A is, we have 160. So AOG, 160 degrees. Then we have, how about AOF? So we're going to come over here to A. We're going to be on the outer scale because we're right here at 0. We're going to come over here to where the F is. And it looks like it's 125. So AOF is 125. Why am I writing 250? I can tell it's Friday. 125. Sorry about that. 125. AOF is 125. It's not 250. Okay, and our last one. You have to watch me carefully so I don't mess up. If we did AOF, we can't do AOE because that's 90 degrees. So let's come over here and we'll do C. If we go from C, let's do COB, COB. And if we start at 0 here where the B is, we use the inner scale and we come over to C, it's 160. So let's see, COB is 160. And they are obtuse, right? So they're all greater than 90. All right. That was kind of fun. We got to measure, we got to label. Let's look at number 4. Now we're going to just measure each angle. So I want this, where this little curvy line is, that's what I'm measuring. So I'm measuring the inside of angle E. So I'm going to put my protractor, I'm lining it up the bottom line, and I'm lining up the center. I'm going to use the inner scale, right? So I go 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. Between 40 and 50, it looks like 45. So angle E is 45 degrees. Okay? So far, so good. Let's look at number 5. Ooh, this is acute, isn't it? It's really tiny. This was acute as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm measuring this little. You can see where this little half circle is. This little mark is. That shows what you're measuring. That's actually the symbol for angle. So this is angle F. So I'm putting the X on here. And I'm putting the bottom line goes on the bottom line of the protractor goes on the bottom line of the angle. And now I'm going to start at the 0 scale because I know this isn't 150 degrees. That would be a really wide open angle. I'm going to start over here at 0 and I go up to 30. So angle F is 30 degrees. And just for practice, I'm going to write acute on here just so that I remember these words, acute, acute. And now it's going to ask us to measure an obtuse angle. Look at how wide open that is, angle G. So I'm going to set my protractor. Bottom line rests on the ray that's on the bottom. And I'm going to start at my 0 scale, right? 0 over here. I go all the way around and it looks like it's 160. It would not be 20 degrees because that would be a little tiny, tiny, tiny sliver. So it's going to be 160 degrees. And that's obtuse. And that was angle G. What did we say it was again? Ay, ay, ay. We said it was 160. And that is obtuse, right? Even though it's not asking us to classify it, it's just always good practice for you to remember vocabulary words to use them as often as you can. All right, our last one. Oh my goodness, we have a big problem here. So on this last one, hang on, I'm going to move my keyboard for a second so I can put this up here. So for our last angle, we have to measure each one of these. Now this is pretty easy because if an angle has a square on it, that automatically tells me that it is a 90-degree angle. That square is a symbol that means right angle. So I'm seeing that angle A and angle D are right angles. So I don't even have to measure them. Ha ha. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call these by their name. This would be ADC. So I'm going to say angle ADC and angle DAB are 90 degrees. And they're right angles. And I know that because I'm seeing the square. The square is the international symbol for right angle. So I can measure it if I want to, if I'm feeling extra. See, it's going to be 90. So you know that it's 90 if you see that square. You don't even really have to measure it. They wouldn't put a square in the math book unless it was 90. Now I'm going to measure angle DCB or BCD. Doesn't matter. So I'm going to put my protractor down here on the bottom line. Right where the C is, I line it up. And because I'm starting over here, I'm going to start on the outer scale, 0. And I'm between 130 and 140 is 135. So DCB and I'm going to say that that's obtuse. All right. Love geometry. I'm sorry, I just love doing this. It's really fun. I love measuring angles. All right, now we're going to do our last one. We're going to call it CBA. You could also call it ABC. Let's call it ABC. And we're going to measure ABC. We're going to put it on B. And I'm making sure that it matches up. You can see that I'm where it's where it needs to be. You can practice in your own math book with your protractor. So I'm starting over here at the 0 scale. I have 0, 10, 20, 30, 40. It looks like it's between 40 and 50, which means it's going to be 45 degrees. which means it's acute. Okay, there's my paper. Was off camera for a second. So one of the things about doing this is that the more you do it, the better you get at it, the faster you can do it. By the time you get to 6th grade, you will remember all of this information and it will be really easy for you to measure angles, right? By the time you get in Seth's class, you'll also have remembered all the terms: obtuse, acute, right? And so the more you do it, the more practice you get at it, the better you get at it. And that's one of the good things about math. And you could say that in general about all math. The more you do it, the better you get at it, right? Okay, I hope that you enjoyed using a protractor today. And remember, one of the most important things about using a protractor is to decide if you're going to use the inner scale or the outer scale, right? And if you're going to use the outer scale, then you always start out with this bottom part that you're measuring, right? The part that you're measuring. So I'm going to be using the inner scale on this one because the 0 is down here, right? So you look for the 0. That's kind of an important thing. If I'm doing an angle going this direction, then or if the paper's turned and the angle's in another direction, I'm always going to be looking for where the 0 is. So the 0 is right here. So I'm going to start on the outer scale this time and measure this way, right? Okay. Hope this helped you. And I hope you enjoyed learning how to use a protractor if you didn't know how to use one before. We're going to continue to practice using them because I would say it's a life skill. Lots of times you use angles when you're making things, when you're doing home improvements at your house, when you're building things. So we use angles all the time. If you become an architect or a designer or a builder, an interior designer, a graphic designer, or an artist, you're going to use angles a lot. All right. So thanks for joining me. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and then I'm going to head out. All right.